Socrates on the mirror principle vertical bar. The mirror doesn't smile. First, have you ever noticed that when you look in the mirror, it never smiles first? Strange, right? We seek so much validation from the outside, likes, approval, compliments, and forget that none of it begins without the initial movement of the soul. The mirror is merely a reflection. It doesn't return virtue. It only reflects what already exists within us. Deep down, we search for truth in smooth surfaces, but we shy away from the painful questions that hurt more than any external criticism. Who am I, really? Socrates once said that an unexamined life is not worth living. What if the emptiness we feel is just the result of not having the courage to face our inner mirror? Be careful. What you discover may change everything. The external mirror and the deception of appearances. Imagine a crystal-clear river. At first glance, it seems to show the bottom clearly, but a single movement, a fallen leaf, or a tossed stone can distort the image. The same goes for the external mirror. Beautiful, shiny, but incapable of revealing the depths of the soul. We live surrounded by reflections, likes, and comments, as if each reaction measures our truth. But are we just gazing at the surface of the water, ignoring what lies beneath? We see this happening in our daily lives. A young person opens their phone first thing in the morning, before even getting out of bed. The first action isn't a deep breath or reflecting on the day ahead, but checking if their photos received likes. This seemingly innocent habit shapes their mood, self-worth, and even their virtue. It's as if their identity is held captive by a mirror that never smiles first, the social media feed. Socrates advised, "Know thyself." It's simple, yet brutal. Autonomy requires crossing the illusion of appearances. The philosopher invites us to be suspicious of reflections, to question not just what we see, but what we believe we see. What if what we take for truth is merely a shadow? The consequence of ignorance is clear. The more we seek recognition outside ourselves, the further we drift from wisdom. It's like trying to fill a leaky cup. No matter how much you pour in, it will never be full. Digital anxiety, the fear of missing out, relentless comparison gradually erode the soul. So, what's Socratic solution? Turn inward. The external mirror isn't useless, but it needs to be confronted with the internal mirror, that of reflection. When we stop to honestly ask ourselves, why am I seeking this? Or, what happens to me when I don't receive applause? We begin to see not just the reflection, but the being that produces it. Perhaps philosophy is the only mirror that doesn't lie. It doesn't smile first, nor does it offer easy applause, but it returns something greater: the chance to see ourselves clearly, stripped of masks. And that, let's be honest, is both frightening and liberating. And you? Have you noticed how social media acts as mirrors that distort your identity? Share your thoughts in the comments. The digital cave and the invisible prison. Think of Plato's allegory of the cave. Men chained, seeing only shadows projected on the wall, believing that was reality. Now, replace the fire with screens, the shadows with endless feeds, and the chains with the invisible addictions of algorithms. This is our modern cave, comfortable, colorful, but deeply misleading. The example is simple. You decide to rest your mind and open an app. 5 minutes turn into 50. When you finally close the screen, you realize your mind is more exhausted than before. The curious thing is that in this process, there's hardly any reflection, just stimuli, comparisons, and fleeting emotions. We are seduced by a theater of digital shadows that promises pleasure, but steals our time and, worse, our self-knowledge. Plato showed that leaving the cave is painful. The sunlight blinds at first, before it liberates. Similarly, questioning the addiction to social media or compulsive consumerism requires the courage to face the pain of withdrawal. Socrates would echo here, "It's not life we should fear losing, but the truth we never dared to seek. Ignorance traps us, and the consequence of this prison is clear. An entire generation that confuses movement with progress, connection with intimacy, information with wisdom. We lose the virtue of presence, replacing it with constant distraction. The result? A fragmented soul, incapable of silence. But there is a way out. Philosophy offers us the key: questioning. Why am I entering this app? What am I truly seeking? And if the answer isn't what I imagine, am I willing to change? These questions are small torches that illuminate the cave, and step by step, we can find freedom. The harsh reflection here is that perhaps the greatest prison is the one where we don't feel the chains. The digital world has given us wings, but it also created invisible cages. It's up to each of us to decide whether to live in shadows or dare to walk toward the sunlight of wisdom. If you've understood so far, comment. Wisdom is power. The empty cup and the illusion of filling it. Imagine an empty cup. Instead of filling it with pure water, you pour soda, alcohol, coffee, energy drinks, and you still feel thirsty. This is exactly what we do when we try to fill our souls with fleeting pleasures. The more we consume, the thirstier we become. Emptiness isn't resolved with excess, but with awareness. In everyday life, this becomes painfully clear. How many times have you bought something you didn't need, just to feel that brief relief? Or binge-watched an entire series in one night, thinking you were resting, only to wake up the next day exhausted? These behaviors are like pouring excessive sweet liquid. They provide immediate pleasure, but leave a bitter aftertaste. Aristotle reminded us, virtue lies in the mean. Neither the empty cup nor the overflowing one, but the balance that comes from self-knowledge. Socrates, in turn, would teach us to question, what are you really trying to fill? Is it hunger for meaning, truth, or wisdom? The answer rarely lies in what we consume, but in what we avoid confronting. Ignorance leads us to believe that emptiness is the enemy. So, we flee from it. The result? Anxiety, disguised boredom, a life chasing distractions. The consequence is obvious. We live filled with things, but empty of reflection. As Seneca said, it's not that we have little time, but that we waste much. The philosophical solution is almost a paradox. Accept the empty cup. Virtue arises when we can remain in silence, endure absence, and reflect without distractions. It's in this space that the soul finds freedom, because it no longer depends on external stimuli to exist. Philosophy, in this case, is not decoration, but nourishment. The mirror doesn't smile first, remember? Similarly, the cup doesn't fill from the outside in. Only when we cultivate wisdom and self-knowledge do we feel the fullness that requires no excess. And perhaps that's the secret of true freedom. Not fleeing from emptiness, but dialoguing with it. And you? Have you found yourself trying to fill the emptiness with distractions? Share your experiences in the comments. The labyrinth of self-knowledge and the courage to get lost. Think of a labyrinth. Narrow corridors, high walls, dead ends. Many fear entering because they know that once inside, there are no guarantees of a quick return. This labyrinth is self-knowledge. Unlike mirrors and social media, it doesn't provide ready answers. It returns silence, doubts, and uncomfortable questions. Socrates warned us, the unexamined life is not worth living. 2. But who is really willing to take that risk? In modern life, this is clear. A person might travel the world, post hundreds of photos, collect degrees, but when they find themselves alone in their room, without noise, they panic. Why? Because they never learn to navigate the inner labyrinth. This constant escape generates anxiety, insomnia, and dependence on others to validate their existence. It's as if we're always running, but never inward. The ignorance here is believing that self-knowledge is optional, like a philosophical luxury. In reality, it's a vital necessity. The consequence of fleeing is living someone else's life, dreams that aren't yours, opinions that you merely repeat, choices based on comparisons. It's the greatest danger, to exist without truly being. Deep down, the soul knows. It cries out for truth, even when you try to silence it. The Socratic solution is paradoxical. To find yourself, you must accept getting lost. In the labyrinth, mistakes aren't failures. They're part of the process. Each wall that rises before us is a chance for reflection. Why did I choose this path? What does this choice reveal about me? It's through the repetition of these questions that wisdom emerges. And virtue, far from being an abstract concept, becomes a living, daily, concrete practice. Here, philosophy enters as a guide. It's not a ready-made map, but a lantern. It doesn't tell you which door to open, but illuminates the door so you can decide. As Epictetus said, it's not the things that upset us, but our judgments about them. The labyrinth is the same for all, but interpretation changes everything. Some despair, while others discover paths. Thus, reflecting is to accept the pilgrimage within oneself. It's recognizing that the external mirror will never smile first, but that by traversing the labyrinth of self-knowledge, the smile can be born from within, not as a reflection, but as essence. And perhaps that's the greatest triumph. Turning the labyrinth into a home, silence into a teacher, loss into discovery. If this reflection resonates with you, like this video and subscribe to continue this philosophical dialogue. And you? Have you ever gotten lost within yourself, only to discover something you never imagined? Share in the comments. The confrontation with the mirror. The unexamined life. Imagine standing before a mirror that, for the first time, doesn't show your face, but your naked soul. No filters, no makeup, no social performance. Just you, facing yourself. Scary? It's the toughest confrontation because there's no room for lies. Socrates echoes like thunder. The unexamined life is not worth living. 8. This phrase isn't a metaphor, it's a sentence. It's both an invitation and a condemnation. The mirror doesn't smile first, and perhaps it never will if you lack the courage to face it. In everyday life, this scene quietly repeats. A professional who, despite success, feels empty when lying down at night. Someone who receives hundreds of messages, but none that truly touch the heart. A young person who collects followers, but can't stand the silence of their own mind. Smiling faces in front of cameras and souls crying in the dark. Ignorance is believing this theater is sustainable. But it isn't. It comes at a high cost. and the price is the truth itself. The consequence is devastating. A life that slips away without ever having been truly lived. As Seneca said, while we procrastinate, life passes. What if everything you believe is just an illusion? What if the choices you made were never really yours? What if you've never truly known yourself? These questions aren't comforting, they're philosophical daggers. Yet, they are necessary. Because without them, we walk like shadows in a cave, convinced we are alive when we merely exist. The Socratic solution is harsh but liberating. Confront yourself. Question yourself every day, not to seek definitive answers, but to cultivate the virtue of constant examination. Plato showed that the sunlight blinds, but also reveals. Epictetus reminded us that no one is free until they have mastered themselves. And Socrates insisted that the greatest of all goods is a well-ordered soul. This path is arduous, but it's the only one that pulls us from deception and leads us to wisdom. In the modern world, this climax translates into simple yet dramatic choices. Do you turn off your phone to hear your own silence? Or do you continue binge-watching distractions? Do you accept solitude as a space for reflection, or rush to fill it with artificial noise? Do you have the courage to ask yourself, who am I without my titles, my status, my followers? Philosophy doesn't soften the impact, it intensifies it. Because only in grappling with the truth does transformation arise. Here lies the decisive moment, to keep fleeing or to accept the mirror, to keep begging for external smiles or learn to smile from within, to continue living in shadows or dare to step into the light. The Socratic climax isn't just reflection, it's a call to action. The question isn't if you will examine yourself, but when. And every day without doing so is a day lost. And have you ever faced the mirror that doesn't show your face, but your soul? Share in the comments. Polishing the mirror within. Virtue before reflection. The mirror doesn't create light, it only reflects it back. If the internal surface is cloudy, the image appears distorted. The metaphor is simple. Polishing the mirror within is cultivating virtue. Without this polishing, truth seems always out of reach. And without truth, the soul distrusts its own shine. There's a lack of wisdom, but a surplus of noise. A lack of reflection, but an abundance of pretense. Questioning is the cloth that cleans. Self-knowledge is the polish. In daily life, this is how it happens. Someone writes a harsh comment at work. You react immediately, inflamed, and your entire day sours. The external mirror has won. It dictated your mood and your worth. But if you pause and ask, what exactly was hurt? Everything changes. The wound reveals attachment to image, not commitment to truth. Responding later is choosing philosophy over impulse. Socrates whispers, know thyself. Aristotle adds, virtue is habit, not miracle. If the mind is a room, habit is the daily tidying. Without tidying, chaos occupies the space of clarity. Ignorance is confusing approval with meaning. The consequence is living off applause and fear. The solution is training the gaze, less audience, more soul. There's science in this, not just poetry. Mirror neurons make emotion a quick contagion. If the feed pours in anxiety, the body replicates the pattern. Repeated habits sculpt the brain like water on stone. Gratitude journals improve attention to what sustains. Micro-breathing pauses recalibrate the nervous system. Philosophy then makes sense. Reflection becomes a bodily practice. The principle is tough, yet liberating. The mirror doesn't smile first. You smile from within, with virtue, and the world responds afterward. Questioning becomes an anchor in a stormy sea. Self-knowledge doesn't push the world away. It organizes your presence in it. Wisdom isn't escape. It's direction. Truth isn't a blow. It's home. And the soul, when settled, doesn't sell itself for likes. So, polishing is a daily verb. 1 minute of silence before opening screens. An honest question before reacting. A small choice, repeated until it becomes character. Philosophy shifts from a book to muscle. Reflection goes from luxury to air. And the mirror, at last, reflects who you have become. And you? What small polish will you do today? Silence, question, or choice? Share in the comments. The mirror never smiled first. Who smiles or bleeds is you before the reflection. If appearance is a stage, the soul is the backstage. Without order inside, the show outside collapses. Socrates reminded us that life only gains weight when examined, and examination begins with the simple, an honest question, an integral habit, a virtue practiced when no one is watching. Choose direction, not distraction. Make questioning an intimate friend and reflection a home ritual. Philosophy isn't an ivory tower. It's a tool for those who want to live with truth. And wisdom, when it matures, doesn't ask for applause. It illuminates. If this conversation sparked something in you, share in the comments what your polishing will be for tomorrow. If you want to continue this journey, subscribe and share with those who need a mirror within. The next step may reveal something even deeper.